Hey, good morning, church family. Welcome back to the Ride In. It's Monday morning, March the 17th. Happy St. Patrick's Day. This morning I want to talk to you about courage. Joshua was challenged to have courage. He was going to need it as he marched into the land of Canaan to claim the inheritance that God had promised to his people. I'm sure he had remembered years ago as he went with the other 11 spies when they had first gone in there to spy out the land. And unfortunately, they had allowed fear to keep them from going in to claim their land, and that fear was a contagious attitude that spread throughout the camp, and ultimately they were bound to wandering for 40 years. It's amazing when you think about it how much that fear and courage can determine, one or the other can determine a whole lot about your life. All of us are tempted to be afraid, there's no doubt about it. We must remember that God has not given us the spirit of fear, but of power and of love and of a sound mind. There are times in life where you've got to face something that you fear. Now in today's day and age, we deal with anxiety and stress, and we talk about fight or flight and how unhealthy it is to always be in a state of fight or flight. And to have courage isn't necessarily saying that you always need to be on the front lines fighting a battle per se. For Joshua, he wasn't always engaged in battle. There were times where the company or the army would be encamped and in between battles and waiting for the next battle, and there's times to recover, there's times to renew, there's times to get your strength back, to sharpen your swords, to replenish your food and your supply and all those things, sleep, rest. But the fact is, there are times when we've got to say, you know what, it's time to fight. It's time to face our fear. It's time to get up. It's time to go and use that sword that we've sharpened. It's time to go and use the strength that we've regained and get out there and fight the battle. I don't know what it is in your life, what battle you've got to fight or what conflict you have to engage in. But Christian, you can only be encamped and for so long. There comes a time where you've got to take what God's put into you and go and fight that battle and stand and face that conflict. You've got to have courage to do so. I know you're afraid. Trust me, I know. I've been there. There's times where we have to face our fears. Just because you're afraid doesn't mean you're not supposed to do something. We have an enemy that tries to intimidate us, that tries to keep us from doing that which is what God wants us to do. And oftentimes the will of God, it's not easy. Sometimes there's mountains to climb, and there's enemies and adversaries to overcome, and there's the potential for conflict. We can't always avoid that. What's the right thing to do? And that right thing might not be easy. That right thing may create some uneasy feelings, but what's courage telling you to do? What's the right thing to do? Christian, by the grace of God, you need to ask God to give you courage. You need to act upon that courage and just do what God wants you to do. Let the chips fall where they may, but do what God wants you to do. Sometimes it's time to declare war. Sometimes it's time to go to battle. Sometimes it's time to have a conversation. And we're going to need courage to do it. God has a promised land for you. I don't know what that is, but it's special. And it's something that God will give you, but you've got to take that step of faith and courage to do it. Think about it, Christian. You can avoid all circumstances that bring uneasiness, but no one ever accomplished much doing that. You can do it, and I promise you that at the end of the experience, almost always, you'll say, you know what, that wasn't as bad as I thought it was going to be. You just might make a friend. You just might make a difference in somebody else's life because you decided to take a stand for truth, to have a difficult conversation. Courage can make a big difference, not only in your life, but the life of those around you. There was a whole bunch of people in the camp in Israel looking to Joshua. They followed him because he had courage. People will follow you. They'll see your example and it will inspire them. So Christian, draw from courage today in some way, shape, or form. Ask God to give it to you. And when he does, take those steps of faith. Don't wait. I love you. Have a great day. Talk to you soon.